Yellow or pink? Yellow with pink hems? Pink with yellow hems. Here's some increases and then knit straight down. Good luck. You guys are going to be very proud. Yay! We love a raglan. Summer knits are over.
I'm Nora, and this is also known as Nora Knits.
Hello there, I'm Nora, and you're watching, also known as Nora Knits. Thank you so much for joining me for another podcast episode today. I am eager to chat about my knitting this week. I have what I'm calling a finished object. There are a couple of whips we will be chatting about, as well as a little bit of reorganizing my plans that I had made during the fall knitting plans time and just reevaluating what's gotten done, what still needs to get done, and how can I best use my time. So that will be towards the end. We'll start with the finished object, a little bit of those whips in between. Before I get started today, I do just want to reintroduce myself because I've noticed that there are a few new subscribers around here. So thank you so much for joining me. Like I said, my name is Nora. I'm coming to you from a small farm in Connecticut, and I've been knitting for nearly 2 years now. I am someone who came from just a crafty, creative kind of background, and essentially on New Year's Eve of 2023, so January 1st, essentially, of 2023, I sat down and said, I will learn how to knit today. And I did. And I've been doing it ever since. And I had started this channel as a place to be able to chat about my knits, to get excited about them, to crowdsource different ideas and opinions, and be able to sort of create a community where there's a beginner knitter who is showing other beginner knitters that it's okay to be an ambitious knitter, even with such little experience. But also, I get to really benefit in my position here by having so many more experienced knitters as people that I could bounce ideas off of. So that was kind of where this whole channel started, and I just been loving it ever since. So I do have a philosophy around making, and that is that the imperfections are what makes something so perfectly handmade. I think it's really okay to make mistakes, and you can learn from them, you can embrace them, and making can be really whatever you want it to be. It doesn't have to be so serious. So if you feel like that's something that you can resonate with, get on board with, I do invite you to come hang out with us more often. I post a podcast video just like the one you're about to watch every Saturday morning at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Enough rambling. Let us go ahead and dive on in. All right, so I will start with my finished object. I do... Oh my gosh, did you hear that? Is everyone okay? I do typically have a rule with finished objects that I don't call them finished until they are blocked, ends woven in, basically ready to wear. That's when they're typically finished objects to me. However, with the timing of this episode, it's basically going to get blocked tonight and it will be dry tomorrow. I know that because I've half blocked it already, but I figured we could just celebrate it as a finished object today, especially because it's not something that you would actually see on camera if I were wearing it right now. So let us go ahead and celebrate the finishing of my Cordelia skirt by Witchery Design. This is a striped midi length skirt. It is part of a matching set. I have yet to knit the top. I think that will be the first priority of mine come spring of next year. But otherwise, it was knit out of Drops Bell, a linen viscose cotton blend yarn, and the main color is called mint cream. The contrast color is called black, and I knit mine in the size extra large. I will say that that was done with mine being a little bit off gauge, and I did already go ahead and put the needle size and yarn consumption information into my Ravelry page for this project, which is linked down below. And then I also have my own measurements down below. So if you are curious more about that stuff, it's always down there, and feel free to ask if you need any more information. But let me grab it. So I literally just finished this and bound this off last night. I have yet to weave in the ends and everything, but it is done. So here we have it. From the top, this is the waistband. If I fold it in half, it'll just be easier for you to see just how long it is. And then the hem of this was finished off with a bit of 1x1 rib. Now, let me share with you just a few things that I did differently with this pattern. So for starters, you are intended to cast on what will become the waistband and essentially knit the sort of height of the waistband, and then do that purl row and fold it down, and then continue knitting the skirt from there. However, I actually did start the project that way, realized that I had done some calculations wrong in determining my sizing. And so when I wound up starting over, I thought it would be more important to start with the actual skirt portion that's going to be sitting on my body and make sure that that's fitting well, because I could always go back with the waistband and alter the sizing a little bit if I needed to make it any smaller, or, whatever I had to do in that department. So I actually started with the sort of column tube that is the skirt. Now, the first portion of this, basically up until I'll be able to tell on this side. Hang on. Maybe not. Okay. I thought my increases would be more obvious to me, which is, how nice is it that they're not really. But you do increase until basically the widest point of the hip, and it's just done on the sides. Each contrast row that you see is made up of stockinette, and then there's a single purl row in that contrast stripe. So the rest of the skirt is stockinette, and then there's just one purl row in each of the black stripes, which really does just give this in person a way more visually interesting look to it. The texture is just, it's more intriguing, it's more luxe looking. And then after those increases are done, you just knit your way straight down. I had initial apprehensions about whether or not this would require any sort of vent in the back of the skirt, just because it is so long. And I wasn't concerned about it until I did my bind off. So now I knit the whole thing down to like a good-ish length. I then went back and knit the waistband. So I picked up stitches for the waistband and therefore just knit the other way. I wound up seaming my waistband down on the inside using a crochet hook and a sort of like slip stitch bind off. I don't really know what you would call that, but using a crochet hook to pick a stitch up off of the working needle, and then inserting through a stitch at the base of where I was trying to seam this down, and pulling through a loop with a slip stitch like it would be a crochet project. Then I did all of that around the elastic waistband. I did make my waistband, I think, just a 1/4 inch taller than what the pattern recommends. I went based off of what looked right to me. There was really no rhyme or reason why I had made it 1.5 inches versus 1.25 inches. It just looked more proportionate to me. So that was why I did that. I have my 1.5 inch elastic in there. I did take advantage of the fact that I was returning to the waistband to pick up a few less stitches than I had around, just to bring things in a little further. And I'm happy to say that it actually fits so perfectly. At that point, everything that I had knit to so far, I blocked. And then I discovered that it was just a little too short still. I was nervous that I was going to knit this too long, and then in blocking, it would just stretch out quite a bit. But I want to say, it's actually kind of tricky to tell from the blocked to the unblocked part, but if I'm guessing, it looks like around this stripe is where it's not blocked yet. And then the hem is done with this 1x1 rib, like I said. And again, I referenced the pattern, but I didn't follow it exactly. I wound up just doing the same. So I knit my last main color stripe, and then I did the same amount of rows, but in the 1x1 rib. And the last two, I did the knit one, slip one, and then the next row, I did slip one, purl one to set myself up for an Italian tubular sewn bind off. And the reason I did that is because this is where my legs are going to be kicking. And so I'm trying to mitigate any stretching or flaring of the hem. Now, this is where I'm coming back to. I don't know yet if it will need a vent. I will see after blocking. I intentionally did my bind off on this on the tighter side. It's not that tight, but definitely you can tell that it cinches in right now. And that's just because of the nature of this fiber. I know it's going to stretch out quite a bit. And what I didn't want to do was allow it to stretch out too much. And then I would wound up with like a flare at the bottom. So we're going to see how that plays out in blocking as I go around and kind of tug on it now. I think it's going to work out the way that I had hoped. And if not, we'll address that later. Not the end of the world. So the only other thing is that I did consider just doing the hem of this kind of at the same proportion of the waistband. And the only reason I wound up keeping the ribbed detail and in as like small an area as it is, which is very similar to what's written in the pattern, is just because when I have the matching top to this set, I think that that is going to be the thing that really does tie everything together, because the matching top has that amount of ribbing on all of the finishes. So I think that that's going to really help to pull things together. I also didn't care too much because it is like at my ankles. So yeah, I have yet to weave in the ends on this. I just finished it last night. And let me go ahead and give you the rundown on this project. All right, so like I said, the name of this pattern is the Cordelia skirt by Witchery Design. I paid $6.62 for this pattern. The yarn that I used, like I said, that's that Drops Bell, and the colors are mint, cream, and black. I did purchase that yarn specifically to knit this pattern. It wasn't hanging out in my stash. And the full price of that yarn per skein, I purchased mine off of a website called Lindy Hobby. I've bought from them multiple times before when purchasing Drops yarn. And on there, it looks like typically a ball of this at full price is around $2.50. However, because I bought as much of it as I had, it dropped the price down to $2.25 a ball, which obviously is already just a very affordable ball. They do come in little 50-gram balls. So, you're going to need more of them for a project, but I was actually shocked by how little yarn I used for this. So I wound up using a total of 12 balls of yarn. And that's actually even a little generous because I do still have quite a bit of the last ball of yarn that I tapped into left over. And the way that it was broken down was about 5 balls of the black, and then the rest was the mint cream. Which means that had I purchased the yarn at full price for this project, I would have spent about $30 on yarn. However, having received that little bit of a discount for buying it in the bulk that I did, I wound up paying $27 total for the yarn for this project. Then, of course, I did purchase the elastic for this particular project, which we're going to say was about $3. I think I got it on sale, but it would be more work than it's worth to go back and figure that out. But basically, that means that had I paid for everything, all the yarn full price for this project, and with the pattern and everything, the total for the whole thing would have been around $39.62. However, because I did get that little bit of a discount on the yarn, my total wound up being more like $36.62. And that is all for a project that was on my needles for 78 days. Technically 77, but again, I'm assuming that this will dry overnight as it had the first time that I blocked it. So we're calling it 78. And yeah, if you're not seeing right now the after blocking shots, it just means that I didn't get to it before filming this podcast, and I will just pop them into next week's podcast. But otherwise, you should at least be seeing this with the top most of it blocked, and then just the last little bit hasn't been blocked yet, but who knows? Maybe I got around to that before posting this. So yeah, those are all of the details. I have to say that I was a little bit nervous about, I don't typically wear garments, especially like on my lower half, that are quite as snug as this is, but I do feel really good wearing this. It's certainly something that I have to wear something underneath. Obviously, it's a knit fabric, so there's like a little bit of a sheerness to it. But I really do feel like this in the fall, winter, with like a big oversized sweater on top. I wish I had a black, big, oversized, like turtleneck, chunky sweater to pair with this, and just a pair of like over the knee boots. I think that would be a really fun look. And if not, I'm sure that once I get around to knitting the top, this is going to be a really big winner in my wardrobe for next spring, summer. And this was the last of my like summer knits. So I'm happy that it's done. I really enjoyed it. If you're considering knitting a skirt, I think that this was a really easy pattern to follow. It was honestly one of the most bare bones patterns I have ever seen. It literally is a page of instructions, but how could it really be more? It's like, here's some increases and then knit straight down. Good luck. So it is very simple, but I think for the amount of yarn that it wound up using, it's a really great project if you are someone like me who just likes to have something constantly on the go that's stockinette in the round. That one purl row was actually kind of like fun. It was a fun little potato chippiness to look forward to. So that is the Cordelia skirt by Witchery Design. She's all done. We can finally wipe that off. Summer knits are over. At this point, I would like to go in order of the projects that have been on my needles the longest and work our way towards the newer cast-ons, which means that you guys are going to be very proud because we're going to chat just a little bit about my sand cardigan by Maria Isaeva of Ula Knitwear. I am knitting this super long cardigan out of Nora Madara in the colorway Sake. This is my longest ever standing whip. I have had my ups and downs with working on it. It's just a lot of knitting, and this button band is killing me, but any progress is still progress. So let's get her onto Helena the Hanger. Here she is. I know that this isn't a lot, but I do have to celebrate my little wins. If you can see from there, I have here my really beautiful Sable and Stone stitch marker, which is marking the last time that I finished off working on this. And so I've gotten about 2 inches done on the button band. And I gotta tell you, I was really proud that I pulled it out at all over the past week. This is taking a little bit of a back seat. I know I keep saying I'm going to do one of these like knit 10 minutes a day or something. And the reality is that I have a lot of deadline knits coming up, and I'm going to chat about that more at the end of this video. But the idea of taking any time away from those deadline knits really is kind of stressing me out right now. So this was one of those situations where everything was at like an awkward standstill, and I had some time to sit down and knit. So I figured, you know what? Let's bust out the sand cardigan. We'll bring her outside, sit down, enjoy the gorgeous weather we've been having here in Connecticut, and get just a little bit of work done. And like I said, it felt better than not doing anything. So we will see how much she makes an appearance. I won't ramble on because I know that you're all sick of hearing it, just like I am. But just for reference and a reminder that it is okay to have long-term whips, this girly has been on my needles for 249 days today. And it's going to be quite a few more. So that's the sand cardigan, Maria Isaeva, Ula Knitwear. I got 2 inches done, guys, and I'm very proud of it. The next and actually final whip that I'm going to be sharing with you today is the test knit that I have been working on for Emma Mayer, Emma's Knits, and this is the Artemesia sweater. It is a raglan boucle textured sweater with really refined and clean folded hem details. The yarn for this test knit, as test knitters, we did receive 50% off. It is Mohair by Canard, their Mohair Boucle. Mine is in the color walnut, not chestnut. someone caught that. I don't know where I got chestnut from. It's walnut. Um, so apologies if you caught that mix up before I did, but the color is walnuts. And then I have been knitting the finishes with a little combo deal of two different yarns. I will never remember the one that is on the inside. That is the color that I picked up originally and just didn't like the look of it on me with the boucle. And then the second yarn that I picked up is Woolfolk Tinned, and it's a number colorway, but it matches the boucle, the walnut boucle, perfectly. This has been my main priority whip over the week, and I'm excited about it. So let me show you where we're at. See if she'll scooch in a little bit. Don't be shy, Helena. This, doesn't she look so nice? I wish that I had put on a progress keeper last week, but I totally forgot to do that. I do think that I was still on the body. So then since we spoke, I have knit the hem, which I did just like I had done the collar. So like I said, I have those two different colors of yarn that I'm working with. And I started the hem, since it was the outside facing part of it, with the color, the Woolfolk yarn. Then did my purl row where things fold over, did one more row with that Woolfolk just in case it kind of rolls out, and then the rest of it I did with the other yarn. Now, this was interesting to me because the sweater begins, you cast on with that neckband, with that collar. It's not going back and picking up the stitches. And I think that there's like there's just a little bit of a different look from the collar to the hem. And this is a user error type thing, I think, but you might be able to tell that this looks just the slightest bit more stout than the collar does. And the reason why I believe that is because on that cast on collar, you're knitting the collar, folding it down, and then I don't know what the name of that technique would be, where you kind of scoop up the cast on with your left hand needle and then knit that together with the corresponding stitch that's on the needle with the boucle to then move into the rest of the sweater. So it's a very simple and like seamless way of doing things. But I think the important thing is that the tension up there was really easy to stay consistent. Whereas with the bottom of the hem, so this time it was just knitting down the full length of the hem and then sewing it down on the inside. I think that my tension while sewing it down kind of tucked the very first row into the fabric a little bit more. I'm wondering if when I block it, I could kind of stretch that first row out a little bit to kind of elongate it, because for me, it's creating the littlest bit of I don't know, it's not even like a pucker and it's not flaring. It's just kind of pulling that outermost part of the fold kind of into the boucle where I sewed it down, because I think I sewed it down the littlest bit too tight. Now, it's not tight like I could stretch it. I just think the way that it kind of embedded itself, it came out a little bit wonky. It needs to be blocked is the moral of the story. But that was what I had done there. Of course, this is a test knit, so everything is subject to change, but I am knitting mine in the size 2XL. And I have followed everything that she said to do, of course, in the test knit. I even knit the body pretty much to the length that she said to in the pattern. I think I had to just go like a centimeter longer for my own proportions, but it was so close. And honestly, I gotta tell you, it's been a while since I knit a raglan sweater, probably not since the beginning of the year, if I'm not mistaken. And there's just something so easy about a raglan that made this a very instant gratification whip. And I think that's why it's received as much attention as it has. But also because it is a test knit, there's a deadline. And I kind of feel like I have to get this one off of my mind in order to move on to some other things. So to go back and do the first sleeve was really easy peasy. These sleeves are so simple to knit. There's just the littlest bit of a taper, not a taper, like a little balloon sort of cinch at the at the cuff. And then it's done the same exact way as the hem. I almost wish that I had done the cuff first just to kind of practice it in the small circumference because I felt like the hem took me forever. But I have to say, it's such a beautiful finish when you do it and you do it right. It does just look so, so clean, so, so good. And I think it really does contrast perfectly the chaos of the boucle. I'll already say it now. If I can get my hands on other colors of boucle that I really love at a good price, I would 100 times over knit this. I've just enjoyed the process and I am getting out of it exactly what I had hoped for. Something that looks really luxe, really nice, really special, but it's that boucle texture that's bringing all of the that textural, all that effect to what's otherwise a simple raglan sweater. And the folded hems, the folded finishes really do make it look that much more special. So you can see that all I have left to do is actually finish this sleeve. I am using one of my little broke girl hacks here. So I've put a standard flat straight knitting needle row counter onto a safety pin, which is then on a light bulb stitch marker. And that is how I count my rows. So I did this for the whole first sleeve. And I wrote down that number, and now I know I just have to match that on the second sleeve, and it's going by so quickly. This will 100% be finished for the next podcast episode. And like I said, I want to knit at least another one. If you have a favorite boucle that you've used, especially one in like a fun color, I think this would be a really fun project to have in like a hot pink or in a bright yellow or something. It looks like a sweatshirt, but like a very fancy sweatshirt. And I don't have enough of that in my wardrobe. Now, as we're speaking, I'm realizing that I have actually not tried this on because I just finished the cuff this morning. So we should just try it on really quick and see how it's looking. I was going to take this off, but that just seems like an ordeal. So it'll go on right over top. Yay! Okay, so the sleeve length, I am expecting a good bit of blocking or a good bit of growth in blocking for this one, specifically because of the boucle. There's actually a lot of loftiness in it that I noticed in my swatch. It really did kind of bloom and grow. And I wanted cozy length sleeves that I could kind of do this thing with, but I didn't want them to be like billowing and so long. So I do think that I'm going to get a good length sleeve out of this once it's all blocked, said and done. And the length on this is like not cropped, but it's not full length either. It's somewhere right in between. It's very vintage crew neck sweatshirt to me. But yeah, you can see even the way that this is all still kind of standing up after blocking, this is all going to just relax that little bit, which means that the shoulders will drop a little bit more. And this sleeve that's sitting probably just about 1.5 to 2 inches too short in its like natural state right now. I have no concerns about that being the right length in the end. So I will make sure to have stood up and just show you some shots. Please ignore it over this dress right now. This is totally a funny look. But yeah, honestly, I'm hoping to finish this other sleeve in the next couple of days, get this blocked, and start wearing it because it's also the coziest, most teddy bear thing. I don't find this to be particularly scratchy or itchy, and it's really warm and cozy, but also so lightweight, which is just such a treat, isn't it? I love it so far. All right, let me stand up to show you. Also, for reference, so far of the 5 100-gram skeins of this boucle yarn that I had purchased, I know that I have one that has not been wound up yet. And the one that I'm working from right now, I think will be enough to finish out this sleeve. And then I actually still have about maybe not totally half of it, but close to half of it left over from when I had originally knit the yoke in the other color collar. I pulled that out to hopefully salvage it to use it in this garment. but it was very tricky to unravel that boucle. I mean, it just all wants to stick to itself. So I was nervous that I really beat it up while I was pulling it all out. So I've set that aside because I do think with the leftover, there's like a multitude of things I'd like to do. One, I think it would be hysterical to knit OC a matching little sweater with the same like details. I'm going to have plenty of yarn for the cuffs and collar left over. So I think that that would be really, really cute. I also could see using it as like cuffs on some mittens and things. So I'm excited to actually to have that yarn left over. And that way, if I save the kind of more like beat up yarn for little accessories or for something for my dog, it'll be okay. I just didn't want to use it in this project. I'm upset. I love this so much. I really do. I don't know why I never thought before to do a boucle sweatshirt. It just feels really fancy and yet so casual, so wearable. I know I'm going to get a ton of wear out of this, especially because it is comfy, especially with the sort of oversized sleeves, but then because they do taper in at the end, it's so wearable. So I'm loving this. Again, like I said, if you have a recommendation for a boucle yarn that you really like in fun colors, I'd love to know which one it is because I'd like to try it in yellow or pink. Yellow with pink hens? Pink with yellow hens. Something like that could be fun. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. And otherwise, this is the Artemesia sweater. I'll let you know when it's out, probably in the next few weeks or so by Emma Mayer. Go check out the rest of her designs, though. They're very fun, very clever, always a classic with a twist, which is exactly how I describe my style. So it's no wonder I'm such a huge fan of hers. Oh, and this has been on the needles. This has only been on the needles for a whopping 11 days, and that's for a 2XL. It's so quick. We love a raglan. We love a raglan. I'm sure that I just did an absolute number on my hair, and that is okay. So those are the whips that I worked on this week. Oh my gosh, I could feel the difference. I was actually getting a little too warm in that sweater, but I love it so much. So if you were here for last week's podcast, I started my 2024 holiday dress, and that is the Grayling sweater by Magdalena Parker, Knitonomy. I literally had just started the littlest bit of it, and I mentioned earlier that I really do feel like I need to get this Artemesia kind of done. I felt like I had too many whips going on my whip list. And so I would love to get this guy off of the needles and then be able to hunker down and pay attention to the next couple of whips. So if you had seen my fall knitting plans, I did have quite a few deadlines for my fall knits. And one of which was the Artemesia sweater, because of course it's a test knit. And then the other two that I had November deadlines for were, of course, my holiday dress and then also a cardigan that I'm knitting for my sister so that she could wear it on her weekend to go see Taylor Swift. And those are back-to-back deadlines. So the Taylor Swift cardigan, I really need to have finished, and I'm laughing because this is just so impractical. I really do need to have finished and done by November 20th. And then my holiday dress, I was hoping to wear for Thanksgiving. Right now, as I'm reasoning with myself, I'm thinking that as a good sister, I should prioritize the Taylor Swift cardigan. It's not the folklore cardigan, it is the poet's cardigan that I am following Allison Schmidt's free pattern guidelines for on Ravelry. And I'm hoping that if I get this Artemesia sweater done, now that the Cordelia skirt is done, if I could just focus all of my time on her cardigan, then maybe I could get it done just in time for her weekend. And then the worst case scenario is that the Grayling sweater, which I'm turning into a dress, will be done for Christmas. And that is just as well with me. I was hoping to wear it to Thanksgiving and Christmas, but honestly, I could always wear it to Thanksgiving next year. That's not the end of the world. Or maybe it works out, it all gets done. That would be insane. So that's why I had not yet worked on the Grayling dress sweater this week. And I've really been prioritizing getting these two more attainable goals done, out of the way, off of my mind, so that I could then move on to more pressing deadlines. So yes, those are my kind of revised plans. I don't know if I will just press pause on the grayling. It's really going to be determined by how far I can get with my sister's cardigan in the limited time that I have. I'm actually thinking I will try and cast that on today to just get it going. So those are the plans. I do just have one, well, I'm going to call it one acquisition for this week. If you want to see the couple of things that I picked up at Rhinebeck, I did mention them in my Rhinebeck video that I posted earlier this week, which I guess if you haven't seen that, then you could go check that out. I did go to Rhinebeck and Cake Palooza over the Rhinebeck Fiber Festival weekend, and I share all of my thoughts on the festivals as well as what I purchased in that video. So it would seem redundant to go over it again, and it wasn't anything major, so it's okay if you missed it. But I did have something show up in the mail for me this week, and that is this kit from We Are Knitters. They very generously reached out and asked if I wanted to try knitting one of their kits. And of course I said yes. I've actually never knit anything from a kit. And the concept of this intrigues me. And I think because I do try to be this like liaison amongst the beginner knitters, it was worth it for me to give this a try. Now, obviously, this has to wait a little bit before I get started, but I thought it'd be a really fun, simple sweater to have for the holidays. I think like for New Year's, this would be really fun. They do also include on the website, when you're looking through the kits, it says like how long it should take. And I think it would be a fun challenge to see if they're accurate. So in the kit, I picked out the size and the color of the yarn, and then the rest is all just kind of within there. It does come with the straight needles, which will be interesting. I've actually never knit anything on straight needles except for when I was literally like 10. And I was first taught how to knit. We gave that up after 2 days, just so you know. But yeah, it comes with the needles. And then for my size, it came with 3 balls of their Touch Me mohair, which is 54% baby alpaca, 24% mulberry silk, and 22% super kid mohair. For their 50-gram ball, there's 400 meters on there. And I just asked for the natural color. It's literally called natural. It is I would call this like a very slightly off-white with, my dress is kind of messing with it right now, but there's maybe just the littlest bit of like a greenish gray undertone to it. I wouldn't call it like a stark blue white or a pink leaning white. It's definitely just the littlest bit of like an olivey kind of undertone to it, but I just thought this would be really great to have in my wardrobe. It is the exact color that she's wearing in the photo, but I chose this color myself just because I don't really own a lot of basic knits. So I'm excited to try this out and let you guys know what I think about it. Definitely let me know if it's something that you want to see the process of, or if you have any questions about this whole kit. I will make sure to put on the screen too how much this would typically cost. But like I said, this was gifted from We Are Knitters, and I'm really eager to try it. I think this would be fun, especially I've talked about my little cousin before who is into crochet, and I think it would be fun to gift someone for Christmas or something, a kit, especially if they're interested in learning. And as a knitter, you can kind of share that, but without having to do a lot of legwork. You know, it's all contained. It comes with the needles and everything. Like, that's really nice. So yeah, I'm really excited to try this out. Thank you so much to We Are Knitters for sending this my way. So those are the projects. Those are the acquisitions. We didn't mention the Tulsa tank today because I actually really didn't touch it since I was prioritizing those 2 pretty stockinette, simple in the round knitting projects. And also because we did just have a really crazy weekend. I actually didn't quite as what? I didn't get quite as much knitting time as I usually do because we were bouncing around so much for the Rhinebeck weekend. So I think that is all I have for you today. I also thought I would just share that this is the last day of the spooky season, as the next podcast will be in the very first weekend of November. So we'll be transitioning out of spooky season, but thanks for indulging with me in a little bit of fun vibes over here. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, I would definitely appreciate it if you would go ahead and give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, if you would subscribe and ring the bell, you'll be notified anytime I post a new video. However, you can always count on there being a Saturday morning podcast at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time. And with all of that being said, a big ol' thanks for watching, and I will catch you on the next one. All right, you guys. Bye.